The spit hit her left cheek at exactly 6:47 in the morning. Sarah Chen, 43 years old. Single mother, 6 years serving coffee to people who looked through her like glass. Her hand trembled around the coffee pot handle, the ceramic warm against calluses that had their own geography of survival. Tyler Blackwood, 17. Senator's son. The Rolex Presidential on his wrist cost $42,000. More than Sarah made in a year. More than she'd make in 2 years if she was lucky. He was laughing. The sound cut through the diner's morning hum like a knife through something soft and undefended. But 4 men at table 9 weren't laughing. 4 men in leather vests, Iron Brotherhood MC patches stitched across their backs in thread that had seen rain and blood and years of Montana highways. Michael Romano sat with his coffee cup suspended halfway to his lips, the scar running from his left eye to his jawline, catching the fluorescent light. 62 years old, former Marine Sergeant, Desert Storm. The kind of man who moved like mountains moved, inevitable and final. He didn't move yet, but he would. 4 hours earlier, Sarah's phone had buzzed in the darkness of her bedroom. The sound pulled her from sleep that wasn't really sleep, just the shallow space where exhaustion met worry and called it rest. Daniel's voice came through the speaker, cracked with fluid and fear. "Mama, I can't breathe right." She was already out of bed, hand on his forehead before her eyes adjusted to the dark. 103.2 degrees. The cheap digital thermometer from the dollar store flickered its red verdict. The antibiotics from the discount clinic weren't working. 3 weeks of pills that cost $43 and did nothing except buy time she no longer had. "Baby, the medicine's working. Just needs time." The lie tasted like copper in her mouth. Daniel's cough produced phlegm tinged with pink. Pneumonia spreading to both lungs. The real medicine, the IV antibiotics the doctor actually recommended, required admission to St. Mary's Hospital. $2,100 for the first day, another $1,100 for each day after that. Her checking account held $43.17. "I got to go to work. Mrs. Chen's coming to check on you." The walk to Riverside Diner took 40 minutes when her legs cooperated. The Honda had died 2 months back, transmission gone, $800 to fix it or $200 to junk it. She'd chosen neither, let it sit in the apartment complex lot collecting dust and parking violations she couldn't afford to pay. So she walked. Cardboard lined the inside of her shoes where the soles had worn through. The November cold in Montana turned the cardboard soggy within 15 minutes, made each step a small negotiation between forward motion and the urge to simply stop moving. The diner smelled like it always did when she arrived at 5:50. Burnt coffee and motor oil from the parking lot where the bikers parked their machines. That smell meant survival. Meant routine. Meant another day of smiling at people who needed their coffee hot, and their eggs exactly right, and their waitress invisible except when summoned. Frank stood at the register, counting money, his back to her as she tied on her apron. 6 years she'd worked here. 6 years of morning shifts and double shifts and covering for Maria when Maria's daughter got sick. Frank had never once learned Daniel's name, never asked about the black circles under Sarah's eyes, or why her hands shook on the bad days. Coffee's low. Table 9 needs wiping. Those bikers leave ring stains. The Iron Brotherhood had claimed Table 9 every Tuesday morning for 6 years. They tipped better than anyone else, never complained, always said please and thank you. Like the words cost them nothing because they understood the words cost everything. Michael Romano always ordered the same thing, pancake stack of 5 butter and syrup on the side. He touched a red bandana tied around his left arm every morning, fingers brushing the fabric like a man touches a rosary. Something about the gesture made Sarah's throat tight. Some grief recognized another grief across the space between strangers. "Morning, Sarah." "Morning. Table 9. Where else would we go?" The rumble of their motorcycles arriving at 6:15 had become part of the diner's rhythm. Tommy Sullivan parked first, his Harley rode King's engine, cutting out in a decrescendo that left silence in its wake. Sarah McKenna followed, the only woman in their core group, her red hair pulled back in a braid that fell to her mid-back. Jackson Rodriguez came last, 6'5" and 240 pounds of gentle giant, who always asked about Daniel, remembered his age, brought him a comic book last Christmas that Daniel read until the pages fell out. "How's your boy Miguel? Still sick?" Michael's voice carried concern that never felt performative. Sarah poured his coffee, second cup, the one he actually drank after the first went cold while he read the paper. He's fine, really. The lie came easier the 10th time. The 100th, Michael looked at her with eyes that had seen people lie about being fine in places where being fine meant the difference between making it home or not. Pancakes today, stack of 5. Coming up. She was halfway to the kitchen when Sarah McKenna called out, voice gentle but insistent. Hey, Sarah, you need anything? Money rides whatever, just say the word. Sarah's throat tightened. Pride was expensive. Pride cost more than medicine sometimes. I'm okay, but thank you. At 6:35, the BMW pulled into the parking lot. Sarah saw it through the window as she refilled coffee for the construction workers at table 4. Sleek black paint job that cost more than most people spent on a house down payment. License plate read BLKWD1. Everyone in Riverside knew that car. Everyone in Riverside knew what it meant when Tyler Blackwood rolled up looking for breakfast and entertainment in equal measure. Oh, hell. Tommy's voice carried across the diner, low but audible. Michael glanced out the window, face unreadable. Everybody stay cool. Tyler walked in like he owned the oxygen in the room. 17 years old, wearing boredom and cruelty with the ease of someone who'd never faced a single consequence that money couldn't erase. 2 friends flanked him. Chad wore sunglasses indoors, the kind of affectation that announced wealth before words could. Marcus had his phone out already, camera pointed at nothing yet, but ready to document whatever entertainment the morning provided. They chose a booth in Sarah's section. The universe had jokes that morning. Bitter ones. Be right with you. We're in a hurry. She grabbed menus, put on the smile that cost a piece of her soul every time she assembled it from the spare parts of dignity and necessity. Good morning, what can I get you? Do you have anything that isn't complete garbage? Marcus's phone swung toward her face. The camera lens was a dead eye watching. At table 9, chairs creaked. Michael's hand went still on his coffee cup, fingers pressing white against the ceramic. We have a full menu. Everything's fresh. I seriously doubt that. Bring me egg whites, no oil. Fruit that doesn't look like it came from a dumpster. Coffee that doesn't taste like motor oil. I'll get that right out. Did I ask you to speak? He looked at her name tag. The gesture was deliberate. The theater of dominance required witnesses and details. Sarah. The diner got quieter. Not silent, just aware. Like animals before an earthquake sensed the tremor in the ground before the world tore itself apart. No, sir. Then don't. Just bring the food and try not to screw it up. She walked to the kitchen on legs that wanted to collapse. 3 seconds. That's all she allowed herself. Lean against the prep counter, breathe. Assemble the pieces of the person who could survive this because rent was due and Daniel needed medicine, and sometimes survival meant swallowing things that should choke you. The breakfast rush came in waves. Farmers, truckers, mill workers who smelled like sawdust and sweat. Sarah moved between tables, refilling coffee, delivering plates, her feet screaming in those cardboard-lined shoes. But her smile never cracked. 6 years had taught her how to make her face into a mask that could withstand anything except the truth. At table 9, Michael watched. Tommy watched. Sarah McKenna watched. Jackson watched. 4 pairs of eyes tracking every interaction, reading the room the way soldiers read terrain for threats they couldn't yet see but knew were coming. At 6:42, Sarah brought out Tyler's order. The plate was perfect. She checked every piece of fruit herself, discarded anything with the slightest bruise. The egg whites were fluffy and white as snow. The coffee was fresh brewed, temperature exactly 190 degrees. Tyler stared at it like she'd served him sewage from a backed-up drain. This is it, yes, sir. It's what you ordered it. The fruit's bruised. It wasn't. But arguing would cost her the job. Would cost her the $43.17 she couldn't afford to lose because $43 was gas money if the car worked and bus fare if it didn't and food money when neither mattered anymore. I can bring different fruit. I want the manager. Now, I can help you with whatever you need. Are you deaf, manager? Or do I need to use smaller words? His friends laughed. Marcus's phone kept recording. The theater of cruelty required an audience and evidence. Proof that power could be exercised without consequence. Frank appeared from the point office, wiping his hands on his apron. His face already arranged itself into apology before he knew what needed apologizing for. What's the problem? Your waitress can't follow basic instructions. Look at this garbage. Sarah stood there, silent, small, disappearing into the space where people like her learned to disappear when survival required invisibility. At table 9, Michael set his fork down very carefully. I apologize. Frank's words went to Tyler, not to Sarah. Never to Sarah. I'll comp your meal. You think that fixes it? Tyler's smile was the smile of someone testing exactly how far power could stretch before it snapped. How about you train your staff to not be completely useless? Sarah's one of our best. Then I'd hate to meet your worst. Frank turned to Sarah, eyes cold with calculation and cowardice in equal measure. Be more careful, she nodded. That's all she could do, nod and smile, and survive because fighting meant losing, and losing meant Daniel didn't get his medicine. Bring me a real breakfast. Steak and eggs, medium rare. And this time try to remember you're being paid to serve, not breathe. Yes, sir. The words came out barely above a whisper, but they came out. That's what mattered. Keep going, keep surviving. Keep moving through a world that had decided she didn't matter, except as a vessel to bring food from kitchen to table. What Tyler didn't see was Sarah McKenna's knuckles going white against the edge of table 9. What he didn't hear was Tommy saying, quietly, voice tight, with restrained violence, the kind of violence that came from watching too many people get treated like they were less than human and being unable to stop it. Michael, I swear to God. What he didn't understand was that he'd just crossed a line drawn in blood and brotherhood, in the unspoken compact that some men made when they decided that looking away was no longer acceptable. Sarah took 5 more orders, delivered 3 plates, refilled a dozen coffees. Her hands stayed steady because they had to, because Daniel's medicine depended on tips, because survival wasn't optional when you were the only thing standing between your child and disaster. The steak came out perfect, too. Gerald had cooked it himself, terrified of complaints, terrified of scenes, terrified of anything that might threaten the fragile ecosystem of a diner that barely broke even on good months. Sarah brought it over at 6:46. Finally, Tyler cut into it, chewed, made a face that announced displeasure before his mouth had finished processing the meat. Overcooked. It wasn't. The center was pink and perfect, the sear creating a crust that any steakhouse in Montana would serve with pride. But truth didn't matter when power decided to rewrite reality. I can have the cook make another. No, I'm done. He stood. His friend stood with him. Marcus's phone was still recording. The theater of cruelty was building toward its climax, now needed the final act that would make the whole performance worth remembering. You know what your problem is? Sarah said nothing. There was nothing to say that wouldn't detonate the payment she felt ticking in the space between them. You people don't understand your place. He pulled out his Gucci wallet, the leather soft and expensive. Threw a single dollar on the table. $1 for a $30 meal Frank had already comped. The gesture wasn't about payment. It was about message. Maybe spend less time pretending you matter and more time learning to do your job. He walked toward the door. Sarah exhaled relief. Almost over, almost survived, almost made it through without the world ending. Tyler stopped, turned. The movement was theatrical, practiced. The kind of thing someone did when they'd thought about this moment planned, it savored it before execution. People like you are why people like me stay on top. Time stopped, his mouth pursed. The spit left his lips in slow motion, traveled 3 feet through air thick with morning light, and the smell of coffee and motor oil. Hit Sarah's left cheek with warmth that felt like violation in liquid form. Deliberate. Precise. The ultimate expression of contempt delivered with bodily fluid because words weren't enough, and violence would leave evidence, but this lived in the space between insult and assault where the law couldn't reach. The saliva was warm. It dripped toward her jaw. Sarah's hand rose halfway, froze. Her eyes went wide, but not with anger. With humiliation so complete, it erased language. Humiliation that reached down into the place where she kept her sense of self and announced that maybe Tyler was right. Maybe she didn't matter. Maybe 6 years of perfect service and please and thank you and cleaning up after people who looked through her had been for nothing because she was nothing. Tyler laughed. Chad laughed. Marcus's phone captured it all. Frank stood behind the register doing absolutely nothing. The customers looked at their plates. If they didn't see it, it wasn't real. if they pretended it wasn't happening. They weren't complicit. The social contract of cowardice required collective blindness. And Sarah stood there with spit on her face and tears in her eyes and nowhere to go because rent was due. And Daniel needed medicine, and sometimes survival meant swallowing things that should choke you, meant standing there while the world announced your worthlessness in front of 30 witnesses who would remember this moment every time they saw you, and every time they saw you, they would remember you weren't worth defending. The chair scraped at table 9. Michael Romano stood. Not fast, the way mountains move when the earth decides the landscape needs rearranging. Inevitable. Irreversible. Oh, shit. Tommy's whisper carried. Here we go. One by one, the others rose. Sarah McKenna, Tommy Sullivan, Jackson Rodriguez. 4 people becoming one unified force. They didn't run. They walked. Boots heavy on linoleum. The sound was judgment approaching. The sound was consequences, learning to walk upright. What's this? Tyler's voice climbed higher. The bravado cracked around the edges. Michael didn't answer, just walked. The other 3 fanned out behind him in formation that spoke of training and brotherhood and the kind of automatic coordination that came from years of riding together, fighting together, standing together when standing meant something. I said, what the hell is this? Michael stopped 3 feet away. Close enough to be felt, far enough to be a choice. You're going to apologize to the lady. The words came quiet. That made them more dangerous. Loud anger was theater. Quiet anger was decision made and ready for execution. Excuse me, Tyler laughed, but it sounded wrong. Hollow. The laugh of someone who suddenly understood the game had changed and no one had told him the new rules. Do you know who I am? Don't care who you are. Care what you did. What I didn't do anything. She's just a Sarah McKenna's voice came from behind Michael, soft but sharp as a blade between ribs. Finish that sentence, please. I want to hear how it ends. Tyler looked at his friends for support. Chad had lowered his phone. Marcus had taken a step back. The theater of cruelty required witnesses, but witnesses who knew when to exit stage left before the scenery collapsed. My father is Senator James Blackwood. One phone call, and this place gets shut down. One call, and all of you are looking at charges, harassment, assault, whatever I say you did. Michael pulled out his phone, set it on the nearest table. Make the call. You think I won't? I think you will. And I think it won't matter. Tyler's hands shook, pulling out his iPhone. The 11 Pro Max. $1,200 of technology reduced to a lifeline for someone discovering that lines didn't save you when you'd already crossed too many of them. He dialed. Put it on speaker. The theater of power required witnesses to his restoration. 2 rings. Taylor, it's 6:47 in the morning. Senator Blackwood sounded tired. The kind of tired that came from years of calls like this. Years of cleaning up messes. Years of knowing your son would never learn because learning required consequences. And consequences were something other people experienced. Dad, I'm at this diner and these bikers are threatening me. I need you to. What did you do? The question hung like an execution. Sharp, final, the tone of a man who'd reached the end of a very long rope. What? Nothing. There was just this waitress who, what did you do, Tyler? Why do you always assume because you always do something every time? Every goddamn time I get a call from you, you've done something. The silence in the diner was the silence of 30 people collectively holding their breath. Dad, that's not fair. Handle it yourself. I'm done cleaning up your messes. You're 17, not 7. Figure it out. The line went dead. The click echoed in the space where Tyler's power used to be. Chad and Marcus were already at the door, not running, but walking with the careful speed of people who understood when association became liability. Tyler stood there, hand holding the phone, shaking. Everything he'd counted on his entire life, the name, the money, the father who made problems disappear, had just evaporated like morning fog under sun that showed the landscape for exactly what it was. Now, Michael's voice was gentle. That made it worse somehow. Anger would have been easier to dismiss. Gentleness required acknowledgement of humanity. You're going to apologize. Real apology, loud enough for everyone to hear. I don't apologize to Michael took one step forward. Just one. But everything in that step, the weight, the certainty, the absolute conviction made Tyler take 3 steps back. Let me tell you about my mother. Michael's voice dropped lower. The diner had become a church. His words were the sermon. She was a waitress, 42 years old, worked herself to death at a place just like this. One day some businessman, guy in an expensive suit, probably a lot like your daddy, decided she wasn't moving fast enough, yelled at her in front of everyone, called her stupid, lazy, worthless. He paused. The red bandana on his arm caught light. She came home that day and cried for 3 hours. I was 12. Couldn't do a damn thing about it. I watched the strongest woman I ever knew break down because some rich bastard thought his money made him better than her. He looked at Sarah. She still hadn't moved, still had spit on her face, still standing. I swore that day I'd never let it happen again. Not where I could stop it, not where I could stand up. He turned back to Tyler. So you're going to apologize, and you're going to mean it. Or we can do this the other way. What? Tyler's voice cracked. Tommy held up his phone. Your friend filmed everything. The disrespect, the spit, all of it. Be a real shame if that ended up online. Yale application committee might have questions. Your daddy's re-election campaign might have problems. Tyler went pale. The color drained from his face like water from a broken pipe. You wouldn't, Sarah McKenna's voice was steady. Try us. The kid looked around. No friends, no father, no phone saving him. Just 4 bikers and a diner full of witnesses and the consequences of his choices finally coming due. I'm sorry. The words came out mumbled. Louder. I'm sorry. Look at her when you say it. Tyler turned to Sarah, really looked at her for the first time. Saw the tears, the exhaustion, the dignity she'd maintained despite everything. I'm sorry, His voice broke. Not from remorse. Not yet. From fear. But fear was a start. That's not enough. Michael's words cut through Tyler's attempt at escape. Words are cheap. You need to understand what you did. Really understand. You're working here. 3 days. Full shifts. The diner gasped. Sarah gasped. What? Tyler's eyes went wild. You heard me. You show up tomorrow at 6 a.m., put on an apron, take orders, serve food, get to stand where Miss Sarah stands. See what it feels like to be treated the way you treated her. You can't make me. You're right, I can't. Michael crossed his arms. But that video exists. Small towns talk. Yale admissions offices have email addresses. So you can work 3 days, or you can spend the next year explaining to everyone why there's video of you spitting on a single mother. Your call. The math was brutal and simple. Tyler's shoulders dropped. Fine, I'll do it. Good. Michael turned to Frank, who'd been hiding behind the register. He shows up late, you call me. He disrespects anyone, you call me. He quits early, you call me. Understood. Frank nodded so hard his jowls shook. 6 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. The bikers stepped aside, making a path to the door. Tyler walked through it like a man walking to his own execution. The BMW roared to life and disappeared. The diner exploded into conversation. Michael turned to Sarah. You okay? She finally wiped her cheek. Her hand was shaking. Why did you do that? Because somebody had to. You don't even know me. I know enough. He pulled out his wallet. $200 in 20s. Set them on the counter. That's not charity. That's 6 years of tips we should have given better. We've been eating your cooking, drinking your coffee, taking your tables. We owed you better. Sarah McKenna stepped forward, added 100 for your boy's medicine. Then Tommy, then Jackson, each adding bills. By the time all 4 had contributed, $800 sat on the counter. Sarah stared at it like it might vanish. I can't. You can. Sarah McKenna's voice was firm. Medicine, car repair, new shoes, whatever you need. Why? Michael looked at table 9, at the booth where they'd sat every Tuesday for 6 years, where they'd watched Sarah serve with grace and kindness despite everything. Because we take care of our own, and you're one of ours now. Sarah's hands went to her mouth. Tears came, real ones this time, not from humiliation, from being seen, from mattering. Thank you. The words came out broken. The bikers filed out. Their motorcycles started in sequence. Rolling thunder that shook the windows and rattled the coffee cups and announced that something fundamental had shifted in the small town of Riverside, Montana. They rode off into the morning and the diner felt different somehow. Bigger, cleaner, like fresh air had replaced something toxic that had lived in the walls for too long. Sarah stood at the counter looking at the money, at her reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser. She picked up the bills carefully, counted them twice, folded them, put them in her apron pocket with trembling hands. Then she went back to work because that's what she did. But she walked taller now, her smile came easier. When she refilled coffee, people thanked her by name. When she brought out food, they looked her in the eye. At 7:15, she took her break, called Daniel's doctor. I'd like to schedule that follow-up, and I'll pay for the real antibiotics today. The ones you recommended? Wonderful, Mrs. Chen. We can get you in tomorrow at 8. I'll make it work, whatever time you have. When she hung up, she pressed her palms to her eyes, not to stop tears, to let them come clean instead of cutting. The morning shift ended at 2. Sarah walked home in shoes that no longer hurt quite as much. The $800 folded in her apron pocket felt heavier than paper should feel, like she carried the weight of other people's belief in her worth. Daniel was sitting up when she arrived. Mrs. Chen had propped him against pillows, given him soup that sat mostly untouched in a bowl on the nightstand. His face was pale, but his eyes tracked her movement across the room with the alertness of someone who'd stepped back from an edge they hadn't realized they were approaching. Hey, baby. Hey, mama. She sat on the bed edge, touched his forehead, still warm but not burning. The fever had broken sometime during the morning while she'd been serving coffee to people who now knew her name. Doctor tomorrow. Real medicine. His eyes went wide with the kind of hope that hurt to witness, because hope required believing in things that hadn't happened yet. We can afford it, yeah. We can afford it. How? She thought about Michael Romano, about 4 bikers who saw her when everyone else looked away, about the red bandana now tied around her wrist carrying the weight of another woman's battles. Some people are just good. That night she counted the money 3 times, divided it carefully, medicine first. $417 for the IV antibiotics Dr. Martinez had prescribed. Car repair next. $300 would get the transmission looked at, maybe fixed if the damage wasn't catastrophic. New shoes, real ones with actual soles. $50, rent. The remainder would cover what she still owed and buy breathing room for next month. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling where water stains mapped countries that didn't exist. Sleep didn't come easy, but when it did, it came without the usual anxiety that lived in her chest like a second heartbeat. The money would run out eventually. Money always did. But something had shifted that couldn't be measured in dollars. She'd been seen, defended, valued. Across town, Tyler Blackwood didn't sleep at all. He lay in his California king bed with sheets that cost more than Sarah's monthly rent. Egyptian cotton, 1,200 thread count. The kind of luxury that was supposed to mean something, but felt empty now, like eating expensive food that had no taste. His phone sat on the nightstand, buzzing with notifications. Text after text. The video existed. Marcus had it. Jake had it. By now, half of Riverside had seen it, and the other half would by morning. At 5:30, his alarm went off. He'd set it the night before with hands that shook, knowing that morning would come, whether he wanted it to or not. He could just not go. What were they going to do? Those bikers had no real power beyond their motorcycles and their leather vests, and the moral authority that came from doing the right thing when everyone else looked away. But then he thought about the video, about Yale's admissions office, about his father's campaign, about how looking away had stopped being an option the moment that spit left his mouth. He got dressed slowly, jeans from his closet that still had tags on them, plain t-shirt. His hands moved through the routine of becoming someone he didn't recognize in the mirror. His mother knocked at 5:45. Elizabeth stood in the doorway in her silk robe, coffee in a bone china cup, looking at her son like he was a puzzle she'd never quite solved. Tyler, are you really going? I don't have a choice. She stepped into the room, set the coffee down on his dresser. Your father said I know what Dad said. He grabbed his keys. The BMW fob felt heavy in his palm. He made it pretty clear he's done protecting me. He's not done. He hung up on me, Mom, in front of everyone. Do you know how that felt? She looked at him for a long moment. Something moved behind her eyes. some memory or recognition he couldn't read. Do you know how that waitress felt when you spit on her? The question landed like a physical blow. Tyler had no answer, no response that wouldn't sound like excuse or deflection. What Elizabeth didn't say was that 30 years ago she'd been that waitress, before she met James Blackwood, before the money and the mansion and the carefully constructed life that erased her past like pages torn from a book. She'd never told Tyler. Part of her wished she had. Part of her knew that some lessons only land when they cost something. He drove to the diner in silence. The BMW felt too big, too obvious, too much like a neon sign announcing his privilege. He parked in back, hoping the building would hide it from the street. Tommy Sullivan was already there leaning against his Harley smoking a cigarette that added small clouds to the cold Montana morning. On time. Didn't think you'd show. I'm here. That's not the same as showing up. Tommy flicked ash onto asphalt. Come on. Inside the diner was filling with the early crowd, construction workers with calloused hands and permanent dirt under their nails, nurses finishing night shifts, exhaustion worn like uniforms, retirees drinking coffee and reading news on phones held at arm's length. They all looked up when Tyler walked in. The whispers started immediately, a wave of recognition and judgment rippling through the room. That's him, Senator's kid. Heard he spit on Sarah. Is that true? In front of everyone, videos online. Saw it this morning. Frank appeared from the Bush office holding an apron, like it was evidence in a trial where the verdict was already decided. You're here, okay? He handed Tyler the apron. Sarah's at the hospital with her son. So I'm training you today. Put this on. Tyler put on the apron. It was stained and worn, carrying the ghosts of 1,000 shifts. It felt like a costume for a play where he didn't know his lines. First rule, Frank's voice was all business, no warmth. The customer isn't always right, but you treat them like they are because they tip, and tips are survival. I don't need tips. Frank looked at him, really looked, like he was seeing something he recognized and didn't like. No, you don't, but Sarah does, and Maria does, and every other person working here does. So when you mess up today, and you will, it affects all of us, their tips, their rent, their kids' medicine. Understood. Tyler's throat felt tight. Yeah. Say yes, sir. His face flushed hot. Yes, sir. Good. Let's go. The first 2 hours were basic training. How to carry plates without dropping them. How to pour coffee without spilling. How to write orders fast because people got impatient and impatience didn't tip well. How to smile when your feet hurt and your back ached and someone was being cruel because that was the problem and nobody cared about your pain. At 6:30, the breakfast rush hit like a wave. Table 4 needs water. Tyler grabbed a pitcher, walked over. The man was mid-50s wearing work boots caked with dried mud and a flannel shirt that had seen better decades. Water, sir. The man looked up. Recognition hit his face immediately, turning his expression hard. You're the kid who spit on Sarah. Every conversation in the diner stopped. 30 pairs of eyes landed on Tyler with the weight of collective judgment. Yes, sir. My wife was a waitress. 30 years at a truck stop off I-90. Cancer took her 2 years ago. The man's voice was steady, but something dangerous lived underneath it. I remember every person who was cruel to her. Every single one, their faces, their words. The way they made her feel small. He pushed his water glass forward. Pour. Tyler poured. His hands shook. Water sloshed onto the table, spreading in a puddle that reflected fluorescent lights. Wipe that up. I'll get a towel now with your apron. Tyler used his apron. The humiliation burned in his throat like acid. This was what Sarah had felt. This powerlessness, this reduction to nothing. Thank you. The words came out barely audible. Didn't hear you. Thank you, sir. Better. The man's name was Frank Morrison, widower, retired millworker. He came to the diner every Tuesday and Thursday because being home alone with memories was harder than being alone in public. His wife Nancy had served coffee and eggs and endless patience to truckers who sometimes treated her like furniture. He'd never been able to defend her the way those bikers had defended Sarah. That regret lived in him like a stone he couldn't swallow and couldn't spit out. At 7:15, Tyler was carrying 3 plates, pancakes, eggs, bacon. He'd stacked them the way Frank showed him, but his hands weren't used to the weight distribution. They slipped. For one impossible moment, he thought he could save them. Muscle memory from catching footballs from reflexes trained by expensive sports camps. But gravity had other plans. The crash echoed, ceramic and glass exploding against linoleum. Food mixing with fragments in a pattern that looked like abstract art created by failure. The diner went silent. Then someone clapped. Slow, deliberate, mocking. Clean it up, rich boy. Tyler got on his hands and knees. The floor was cold and sticky with old grease. He picked up glass. A shard cut his right palm. Blood welled up and mixed with egg yolk and maple syrup until he couldn't tell which was which. His designer jeans soaked up spilled coffee and the judgment of 30 witnesses. Nobody helped. Frank appeared with a mop and a look of weary disappointment. You're bleeding. I'm fine. No, you're not. Come on. He led Tyler to the back room, ran the cut under cold water that stung like punishment delivered through plumbing, applied peroxide that burned worse, wrapped it in gauze. Why are you helping me? Tyler's voice cracked on the question. Because that's what people do. Frank secured the bandage with medical tape. They help even when it hurts, even when the person doesn't deserve it, even when nobody's watching to give them credit. Tyler felt something break inside him. Not collapse, but crack. The first fissure in armor he'd worn his entire life without knowing it was there. I don't know how to do this. Then learn. Frank handed him a clean apron. One table at a time, one customer at a time, one choice at a time. Tyler tied on the new apron, went back out, served coffee with bandaged hands. The morning continued in small acts of humiliation and occasional grace. Someone left him a $2 tip. Someone else left a penny with a note. This is what you're worth. At 8 a.m. his phone buzzed. He ignored it. At 8:15 it buzzed again, and again. By 8:30 he had 47 notifications. During his 10-minute break he checked. His stomach dropped. The video had gone viral. Marcus had posted it at 2 a.m. with the caption, "When keeping it real goes wrong." The footage was clear. Tyler's face. The spit. Sarah standing there. Her dignity in ruins. His cruelty in high definition. 15,000 views. 100 comments. All of them brutal. This is everything wrong with privilege. Hope Yale sees this. That poor woman. Someone find her and start a GoFundMe. His father is Senator Blackwood. Montana deserves better leadership. The hashtag entitled teen was trending in Montana. By noon, it would be trending nationally. Tyler sat in the back office with his head in his hands. His phone kept buzzing. Text from Jake, dude, you're famous. Text from Chad. My parents said I can't hang out with you anymore. Text from his grandmother. Laura, we need to talk. He turned off the phone. Went back to work because what else was there to do? The damage was done. The video was forever. All that remained was surviving the aftermath one table at a time. At St. Mary's Hospital, Sarah sat beside Daniel's bed watching monitors that beeped reassurance in digital green. Dr. Helena Martinez had admitted him that morning. The IV antibiotics were flowing into his small arm through a needle that made Sarah's chest tight. He's responding well. Dr. Martinez checked the charts. Fever's down, oxygen levels improving. We'll keep him 48 hours for observation, but he's going to be fine. Sarah nodded, couldn't speak. Relief was its own kind of overwhelming. Take a break, get coffee, I'll watch him. Sarah walked to the cafeteria in a daze. Bought coffee that tasted like water that had once been near coffee beans. Sat at a plastic table and let herself feel it. Her son was going to live. The medicine was working. The $800 from the bikers had bought what mattered most. Her phone buzzed. Text from Christine Park, Montana magazine. Would like to interview you about yesterday's incident. $500 for 30 minutes of your time. Sarah stared at the number. $500. 2 weeks of groceries. Gas money if the car got fixed. Daniel's follow-up medications. She texted back. When the response came immediately, today, 2 p.m. At the hospital, if that works. Sarah agreed, went back to Daniel's room. He was awake now, color returning to his face in small increments. Mama, there's a video. Everyone at school's talking about it. Don't worry about that now. But Mama, those bikers, they stood up for you. She sat on the bed edge. Took his hand. They did. Nobody ever stands up for us. Daniel's voice was small. I know, baby. I want to be like them when I grow up. Not the kid who spit on you. I want to be the one who stands up. Sarah's eyes filled but didn't overflow. You already are. Tyler's second day began at 5:30 a.m. The alarm was unnecessary. Sleep had become theoretical. He'd spent the night scrolling through comments, watching his life dismantled in real time by strangers who knew him only through 30 seconds of his worst moment. His mother was waiting in the kitchen, coffee already made. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Your father's campaign manager called. 3 times. They want to do damage control. Tyler poured coffee he didn't want. What kind of damage control? Photo op. You serving food. Looking humble. They think it'll help the campaign. No, Tyler, I said no. I'm not turning this into a PR stunt. I messed up. I'm fixing it. That's all. Elizabeth studied her son, saw something she hadn't seen before. Or maybe something that had always been there, just buried under privilege and assumptions. Okay, she stood, walked toward him, hesitated, then hugged him. Really hugged him. Not the performative kind for campaign photos. The real kind that mothers give sons when they're proud and scared in equal measure. I need to tell you something. She pulled back but kept her hands on his shoulders. But not now, after your shift. Come home. We need to talk about who we really are. Tyler arrived at the diner at 6 a.m. The parking lot was packed. News had spread. People had come specifically to see if the senator's son would actually show up for day 2. Some wanted to witness his humiliation. Some wanted to support Sarah. Everyone wanted to say they'd been there. Inside was standing room only. Frank looked panicked. Tyler, you're section 4 through 8 today. Sarah's coming in at noon. Hospital's releasing Daniel for the day. Tyler tied on his apron. His bandaged hand throbbed, but he ignored it. Pain was part of the curriculum now. The customers were more hostile than yesterday. Someone filmed him serving coffee, posted it to TikTok with the caption, "Karma's a waitress." Someone else asked for a selfie, then tagged him in a post about white privilege. Tyler served them all with a smile that felt like it was made of broken glass. At 10 a.m., his phone buzzed. He turned it back on to check the time. Email from Yale University Office of Admissions. Dear Mr. Blackwood, due to recent events that have come to our attention and subsequent investigation into the circumstances surrounding your admission, we regret to inform you that we are rescinding your early acceptance offer effective immediately. Your application fee will be refunded within 4-6 weeks. The words blurred. Tyler read them 3 times before they registered. Yale was gone. The future he'd planned, the escape from Montana, the prestige that would have opened every door. Gone. He sat in the back office, stared at nothing. Frank found him there 15 minutes later. You okay? Tyler showed him the email. Frank read it, handed back the phone. Did you work for it? What Yale? Did you work for it, or did your father's money buy it? Tyler's mouth opened, closed. No answer existed that wouldn't indict him. Your father donated $3 million to their alumni fund. That's public record. So you got in because your last name opens doors. Frank sat in the other chair. Maybe losing it is the best thing that ever happened to you. Now you get to earn something real. The words hung in the stale air of the back office. Tyler wanted to argue, wanted to defend himself, but the defense wouldn't come because Frank was right, and they both knew it. At 11:30, Christine Park arrived. Mid-40s, sharp suit, the kind of woman who looked like she asked hard questions for a living and enjoyed it. She set up her recorder on the counter. Gerald gave her coffee. She waited. Sarah arrived at noon. Daniel was with her, pale but walking. The diner erupted in applause. Real celebration, the kind reserved for survivors. Miss Chen, I'm Christine Park. Montana Magazine. Could we talk? Sarah looked at Daniel. He nodded, strong enough to sit at the counter and do homework for 30 minutes. They went to a booth in the corner. Christine's recorder sat between them like a referee. How long have you worked here? 6 years, and yesterday morning. What happened? Sarah told the story. Not all of it, just the facts. The order, the dissatisfaction, the spit, the humiliation that erased language. How did that feel? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Like I didn't matter. Like all the years I've worked here, all the times I've smiled through insults and cleaned up messes and served people who look through me like I'm invisible, like it all proved he was right. Like maybe I am invisible. Her voice cracked but held. But something did happen. Christine leaned forward. 4 bikers stood up. Why do you think they did that? Because they see people. Really see them. Michael told me his mother was a waitress. He knows what it's like. He swore he'd never let it happen again. Do you think 3 days of work is enough? Enough punishment for what he did? Sarah shook her head. I don't know if 3 years would be enough. You can't teach empathy in 72 hours. Either you have it or you don't. He's learning what it costs to be human. Whether he can afford the price, that's up to him. What Christine didn't know was that Elizabeth Blackwood had been listening from the next booth. She'd come to the diner specifically to find Sarah, to confess something she'd hidden for 30 years. When the interview ended and Christine left, Elizabeth approached. Miss Chen, could we talk privately? They went to the back office. Elizabeth closed the door. What my son did was unforgivable. Sarah waited, wondered where this was going. But I need you to know something. 30 years ago, someone did the same thing to me. Sarah's eyes widened. Elizabeth opened her purse, pulled out a photo worn at the edges from handling, a young woman in a waitress uniform. Name tag read Beth Chen. I was 22, working at a diner in Billings, Ruby's, saving for college. A man, a doctor, I think, got angry because his eggs were cold. He spit in my face, just like Tyler did to you. Sarah took the photo, looked at this younger version of the woman standing before her. What did you do? Nothing. I cleaned it off, went back to work, because I needed the job, because that's what we do. Elizabeth's voice was steady, but something underneath it trembled. I met James 6 months later. He was young then, ambitious. When we started dating, I told him about my background. He said it didn't matter, but then he ran for state senate, then for Congress. And somewhere along the way, it became easier to just not mention it. I changed my name from Chen to Blackwood, started saying I'd worked in my father's business, erased that part of my life. Why? Because shame felt like an acceptable price for comfort, for security, for never having to serve coffee to people who treat you like you're less than human. Elizabeth looked at Sarah directly. But watching you stand there yesterday with dignity, I saw myself. The person I was before I decided pretending was easier than remembering. And I'm tired, Miss Chen. I'm so tired of pretending that wasn't me. Sarah didn't know what to say. This confession felt both gift and burden. Tyler doesn't know, James doesn't know. Nobody knows except my brother David, who hasn't spoken to me in 15 years because I married into wealth and acted like I'd always had it. Elizabeth wiped her eyes. I'm telling you because you deserve to know that what you did yesterday, refusing to accept that humiliation is just part of the job, that's courage I never had. And I want to help you, not with money, with something more important. I want to help you teach my son what I couldn't teach him. That respect isn't about what you have. It's about how you treat people when you don't have to treat them well. The door opened. Tyler stood there. He'd come looking for Elizabeth. Instead, he'd heard everything. Mom. His voice was small, young, the voice of a child realizing his parents are strangers. Elizabeth turned, saw her son, saw the question on his face. Yes, I was a waitress, and yes, someone spit on me. And yes, I've spent 30 years pretending it didn't happen because being Mrs. Senator Blackwood felt more important than being Beth Chen from Billings, who served coffee and saved every penny and had dreams before money made them seem small. Tyler couldn't move, couldn't speak. Everything he thought he knew about his family had just rearranged itself. Elizabeth walked to him. I should have told you years ago, should have taught you that there's no shame in honest work, that the people who serve us are people, not furniture, that dignity isn't determined by bank accounts. She touched his bandaged hand. But I was ashamed, and I taught you to be ashamed of things that deserve honor. That's on me, not you. Me. Tyler's eyes filled. This was grief, not for the dead, but for the truth he'd never been given. At St. Mary's Hospital, Daniel's condition had been improving steadily all morning. But at 1:45 p.m., everything changed. His fever spiked, 100 at 4.2. The monitors started screaming. Nurses ran. Dr. Martinez burst into the room. Sarah had gone to get coffee. She heard the alarms from the hallway, ran back. What's happening? Daniel's not responding to the antibiotics. The pneumonia's spreading despite treatment. We need to increase the dosage, but his body's already at maximum load. The words were professional, but the fear underneath them was clear. Is he going to die? Sarah's voice broke on the question. We're doing everything we can. At 2:15, Daniel coded. The monitor flatlined. That sound, that terrible continuous tone that meant a heart had stopped. He's coding. Get the crash cart. Dr. Martinez started compressions. Nurses moved with practiced urgency. Sarah was pulled back, held by security, who appeared from nowhere with gentle hands and implacable instructions to let them work. Charging to 200. Clear. Daniel's small body arced with electricity. The monitor stayed flat. No response. Charging to 300. Sarah screamed his name against glass that muffled it into something animal. Michael Romano appeared. Tommy and Sarah McKenna with him. They'd been in the cafeteria, heard the commotion. Michael stood beside Sarah, didn't touch her, just stood there. Solid. Present. The way mountains are present. Clear second shock. Stronger. Daniel's body lifted and fell. The monitor flatlined again. Starting compressions. Someone page cardiology. Dr. Martinez's hands pressed rhythmically against Daniel's chest. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm of life trying to force itself back into a body that was giving up. 30 seconds of compressions. Check pulse. Nothing. Continue compressions. Another 30 seconds. Sarah couldn't watch but couldn't look away. This was her son, her baby, the reason she'd survived the last 3 years. If he died, some essential part of her would die too. The part that believed fighting mattered. One more time. Charging to 360, maximum dose. The paddles pressed against Daniel's chest. Clear third shock. The biggest, the last. The monitor stayed flat. 1 second, 2, 3. Then beep. Weak. Irregular. But there, we have sinus rhythm. Dr. Martinez's shoulders sagged. Weak but present. Get him on continuous monitoring. Push epinephrine. Double the antibiotic dosage. Move him to ICU. Nurses moved. Daniel was surrounded by efficiency and equipment and the organized chaos of medicine, refusing to give up. Sarah collapsed. Michael caught her before she hit the floor. He's alive. That's what matters right now. He's alive. Michael's voice was gentle. Sarah clung to those words like drowning people cling to debris. At the diner, Tyler's shift ended at 2 p.m. He'd served 37 customers, made $73 in tips. Every dollar felt earned. Every dollar felt heavy. Frank counted out the money. Not bad for day 2. Tyler looked at the bills. $73. Sarah made that in a good afternoon. He'd made it in 8 hours of humiliation and work. Keep it. What keep the tips? Give them to Sarah for Daniel's medical bills. Frank studied him. You sure? Yeah, I didn't earn them. I'm just learning. Frank nodded. Put the money in an envelope marked Sarah. Tyler walked to his car. The BMW sat there mocking him. Too expensive. Too obvious. A monument to privilege he hadn't earned. His phone buzzed. Text from his father. Need to see you. Important. Come to the Capitol building. Tyler drove, pulled into the underground parking reserved for senators and their families, took the elevator to the 4th floor, his father's office. James Blackwood sat behind his desk. Patricia, his campaign manager, stood beside him, looking like the world was ending, and someone had put her in charge of managing the apocalypse. Tyler, sit. Tyler sat. The video has 47 million views. 47 million. Do you understand what that means? Patricia's voice was sharp. It means your father's approval rating dropped 12 points overnight. 12. We're tied with his opponent. The election is in 3 weeks. Tyler said nothing. What was there to say? We need to do damage control. Press conference. You and your father. Reconciliation. Second chances. Family values. We spin this into number. James's voice cut through Patricia's pitch. No press conference. No spinning. A reconciliation photo op. Senator, with all due respect, I said no. James stood, looked at his son. Tyler needs to finish what he started, learn what he needs to learn, without me rescuing him, without turning his consequences into my campaign strategy. Sir, if we don't do something, you'll lose. Then I'll lose. The words hung in the air. Patricia stared. Tyler stared. James walked to the window, looked out at the Capitol grounds. I've been a senator for 12 years. In that time, I've passed 43 bills. Good bills. Bills that help people. But I raised a son who spits on waitresses. So what did I actually accomplish? He turned back. I'm withdrawing from the race, announcing tomorrow. Patricia went pale. Senator, you can't. I can. And I am. Because my son matters more than my career. And if I can't teach him to be a decent human being, I have no business representing anyone. Tyler's throat closed. His father had never chosen him over politics. Not once in 17 years. Dad, one more day at the diner. Finish your 3 days, then we figure out what comes next. James walked over, put his hand on Tyler's shoulder. I'm sorry, son, for putting my career ahead of your character, for teaching you the wrong lessons, for being the kind of father who made you think money matters more than people. Tyler stood, hugged his father. They stood there in the office while Patricia's phone buzzed with messages from staffers who didn't yet know their candidate was withdrawing. The campaign was ending, but something else was beginning. Tyler's third morning arrived with an alarm that felt gentler somehow. He'd slept. Not well, but real sleep. The kind that comes when you've stopped running from consequences. Sarah was already at the diner when he arrived at 6 a.m. Daniel was home, stable. The doctors had cleared him yesterday evening after the crisis passed. The stronger antibiotics were working. She looked different, stood taller. The red bandana Michael had given her circled her wrist like armor made of cloth and meaning. Last day, Tyler nodded. You learned anything yet? Everything. The word came out raw. She poured him coffee. They stood at the counter. The diner was quiet. The early rush hadn't started yet. What did you learn? That my money doesn't make me better than anyone. It just makes me lucky. And luck isn't character. He looked at her directly. I learned that you're stronger than anyone I have ever met, that your son is braver than me, that Michael and the bikers are what I thought heroes were before money taught me heroes wear suits. His voice cracked. And I learned that I wasted 17 years thinking I mattered because of my last name. When the truth is, I only matter if I do something worth mattering. Sarah's eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. You still hurt me. I know. 3 days doesn't erase that. I know. Silence stretched between them. The diner held its breath. But it's a start. She extended her hand. Sarah Chen. Tyler shook it. Her hand was callous, strong, real in a way his had never been until 3 days of broken plates and spilled coffee. Tyler Blackwood. And I'm sorry. Really sorry. At 11:45, Tyler's phone buzzed. Text from James' press conference in 15 minutes. Wish me luck, Tyler showed Sarah. You should be there. I'm working. Shift ends at 2. Your father's ending his career right now. Go. Tyler looked at her, saw permission in something else, understanding that some moments mattered more than keeping promises. Michael Sarah called across the diner. Can Tommy cover Tyler's section? He needs to go. Michael nodded. Tommy stood, took Tyler's apron. I got it. Go be with your family. Tyler ran to his car, drove through red lights and traffic laws that suddenly seemed negotiable when measured against what was happening at the Capitol. He arrived at 12:03, pushed through reporters, found his mother in the front row. She waved him over. James stood at the podium. 50 reporters, cameras, the machinery of political destruction operating at maximum efficiency. I'm withdrawing from the Senate race. The room exploded. Questions shouted over questions. James raised his hand. Silence fell. Not because of scandal, because of failure. I failed as a father. His voice was steady, but something underneath it trembled. 3 days ago, my son did something unforgivable. He spit on a waitress. Sarah Chen, single mother, working to save her dying son. And when I got the call, my first instinct wasn't to ask if he was okay. It was to protect our name, our reputation, our campaign. Tears formed. Real tears that cameras captured and would replay forever. I hung up on him. Told him to handle it himself. What I should have said was, what did I do wrong as a father? He looked at the cameras. Because this isn't Tyler's failure. It's mine. I taught him power matters more than principle. That money solves problems. That people who serve us are servants, not humans. A group of bikers taught him what I never did. That dignity isn't negotiable. That respect is earned. He turned, looked directly at Tyler. I'm sorry, son, for everything. James Blackwood had never apologized. Not in 12 years of politics. Not in 17 years of fatherhood. The words hung in the air like evidence of transformation. Tyler couldn't speak, just nodded. His father stepped down from the podium. Patricia tried to intercept him with damage control. He walked past her like she was furniture. The family left through a side exit, got in the car, drove back to Riverside in silence that wasn't uncomfortable. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after storms when you're counting what survived. I have to finish my shift. Tyler's voice broke the silence. I know. We'll wait. All of us. They pulled into the diner parking lot at 1:45. 15 minutes left. Tyler went inside, put on the apron, worked the final minutes. At 2 p.m., Frank called him over. Your shift's done. Tyler untied the apron. The gesture felt significant. You did okay, kid. Better than I expected. Thanks. Sarah appeared with Michael and the bikers. Daniel sat at the counter, homework spread out healthy color back in his face. Come with me. Sarah led everyone to table 9, the booth that had started everything. We wanted to do something for you, Michael spoke. But we realized you don't need anything from us. I need a lot, actually. Tyler's voice was steady. I need to learn how to be better, how to show up, how to matter. Then here's what you do. Sarah McKenna leaned forward. Come back. Not because you have to, because you want to. Work here. 1 shift a week. Minimum wage. Real work. Keep learning. Tyler looked at Sarah Chen. Would you want that? Would you actually do it? Her voice was gentle but firm. Or is this just another moment that sounds good? I'll do it, every week, for as long as you'll have me. Sarah smiled. Then yeah, I'd want that. Michael stood, extended his hand. Tyler shook it. You did good, kid. Not perfect, but good. And good is where change starts. The diner applauded. Not everyone. Some still hated him, but enough people clapped that it felt real. Frank approached. Sarah, about the money situation. I haven't been fair, I know. Sarah turned to face him. And I'm done here. Effective immediately. The diner went silent. You're quitting. Frank's face went pale. I'm quitting you. But Michael and the Iron Brotherhood are helping me start my own place. Real wages, fair tips, table 9 reserved always. She looked at Tyler. You're welcome there too. When it opens, if you're still interested. I am, he said it without hesitation. Michael grinned. We've been talking with the chapters. 15 clubs across Montana. We can raise funds, help with construction. You've got 11,000 saved. We'll help you get the rest. Sarah's eyes filled. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Michael's voice was gentle. Say yes to building something that proves yesterday mattered. That standing up changes things. That one person's dignity is everyone's responsibility. Yes, Sarah's voice was strong. Yes to all of it. They hugged. Bikers and Waitress and Senator and son. One moment of genuine connection. Outside, the sun was setting over Montana. The viral moment was becoming history. But inside the diner, something had been built that would last longer than any video. Tyler drove home with his parents. They ordered pizza, ate it off paper plates in the kitchen, not the formal dining room. The kitchen where real families ate real food. What now? Tyler asked. Now we figure it out. Together. James took a bite of pepperoni. I think I want community college instead of Yale. His parents looked at him. Are you sure? Elizabeth's voice carried concern but not judgment. Yeah, I don't deserve Yale. And honestly, I don't want it anymore. I want to learn, really learn. Then that's what you'll do. They finished eating, cleaned up together, went to bed in a house that felt different, lighter. Like they'd been carrying something heavy for years without realizing it and had finally set it down. Tyler lay in bed at 10 p.m. His body hurt. His hands were permanently stained with coffee. His feet had blisters. But he was smiling. Tomorrow he'd wake up different. Not fixed, not perfect, but different. And different was where healing started. 6 months. That's all they needed. 6 months to transform a dream into wood and brick and promise. 6 months for Tyler to learn what mattering really meant. 6 months for a community to prove that standing up was just the beginning. The hard work the building was still to come. But they were ready. All of them. together. Tyler woke at 4:30 on his third morning. The alarm wasn't necessary. Sleep had become something that happened to other people. He lay in darkness that felt heavier than it should, thinking about his mother's confession in Christine Park's article. Elizabeth Chen, the waitress his father had erased. His phone showed 217 new notifications. The article had gone viral, not the fun kind, the kind that dissected your life in comment sections and decided your worth based on 30 seconds of video. But one text stood out, from his grandmother. "I'm proud of you for finishing what you started, for not running. Come see me when you're done. We need to talk about who we really are." He drove to the diner at 5:45. The parking lot was already full. Word had spread. People wanted to see if the senator's kid would actually show up for day 3. Tommy was waiting again. Always Tommy. The man seemed to exist in a state of permanent readiness. Last day. "You ready? I don't know." Good answer. Means you're learning something. Inside the diner was packed. Standing room only. Frank looked panicked behind the register, sweat already darkening his collar. Tyler tied on the apron. His hands moved automatically now. 3 days had taught him the choreography of survival. Not mastery, just the basic steps. Sarah walked through the door at 6 a.m. The diner erupted in applause. Not polite clapping, real celebration. The kind reserved for warriors returning from battles everyone thought they'd lose. She looked different, stood taller. The red bandana Michael had given her circled her wrist like a badge of honor earned through fire. Tyler saw her, saw him. The space between them held everything that had happened and everything that couldn't be undone. She walked over. Customers quieted to hear what came next. "I heard you've been here 3 days." "Yes, ma'am. Learn anything, everything." The word came out raw, honest, the kind of honesty that costs something to speak. "I learned that my money doesn't make me better than anyone. It just makes me lucky, and luck isn't character." He looked at her directly. Not through her, not past her, at her. "I learned that you're stronger than anyone I've ever met, that your son is smarter than me, that the bikers are what I thought heroes were supposed to be before money taught me heroes wear suits and make speeches." His voice cracked. "And I learned that I've wasted 17 years thinking I mattered because of my last name, when the truth is I only matter if I do something worth mattering." Sarah's eyes filled but didn't overflow. She'd cried enough. Now came the part where crying turned into something else. "You still hurt me." "I know. 3 days doesn't erase that. I know." Silence stretched between them. The diner held his collective breath. "But it's a start." She extended her hand. "Sarah Chen." Tyler shook it. Her hand was calloused, strong, real in a way his had never been until 3 days of broken plates and spilled coffee and customers who treated him the way he treated her. "Tyler Blackwood. And I'm sorry, really sorry." The handshake held. Two people separated by everything except this moment of mutual recognition. "The restaurant opens next week. If you want, you can work there. 1 shift a week. Learn what real work means. I'd like that. Minimum wage. No special treatment. Yes, ma'am." Frank watched. For the first time in 6 years, something resembling respect crossed his face when he looked at Sarah. At 11:45, Tyler's phone buzzed. Text from his father, press conference in 15 minutes. "Wish me luck?" He showed Sarah. "You should be there. I'm working. Your shift ends at 2. That's 2 hours away. But your father's ending his career right now. Go. I can't just leave you." "Yes, you can, Michael." She called across the diner. Michael looked up from his pancakes. "Can you spare someone to cover for Tyler? He needs to leave. Where's he going? To be with his father." Michael understood immediately. Nodded to Tommy. "I got it." Tyler took off his apron. The gesture felt significant, like removing armor after a battle that left scars but no casualties. "I'm coming back to finish." "I know. Now go." He ran to his car, drove 90 through streets that turned residential to commercial to governmental. Made it to the Capitol building at 12:03. His father was already at the podium. 50 reporters, cameras everywhere. The machinery of political destruction operating at full efficiency. Tyler pushed through the crowd. His mother saw him, waved him forward. He stood beside her as James Blackwood committed professional suicide with words chosen carefully as scalpels. "I'm withdrawing from the Senate race." The room exploded. Questions shouted over questions. James raised his hand. Silence fell like snow. Not because of scandal, because of failure. I failed as a father. I taught my son that power matters more than principle, that money solves any problem, that people in service positions exist to serve us, not beside us. His voice cracked. The crack was real, unrehearsed. The sound of something breaking that had been held together too long by force of will. My son did something unforgivable 3 days ago. He spit on a waitress, Sarah Chen, single mother working to save her dying son. And when I got the call, my first instinct wasn't to ask if he was okay. It was to protect our name, our reputation, our campaign. Tears formed, actual tears. James Blackwood crying in front of cameras that would replay this moment forever. I hung up on him, told him to handle it himself, because I was tired of cleaning up his messes. What I should have said was, what have I done wrong as a father? Because this isn't Tyler's failure, it's mine. He looked directly at the camera, at America, at history. I taught him that money matters more than people, that power excuses cruelty, that consequences are for other people. A group of bikers, Iron Brotherhood MC, taught him what I never did. That dignity isn't negotiable. That respect is earned through how you treat people when nobody's forcing you to be decent. He turned to face Tyler directly. I'm sorry, son, for everything. James Blackwood had never apologized to anyone in his political career. Not once. Not ever. His entire brand was certainty, authority. The man who had answers when everyone else had questions. Now he had questions and no answers, and his career was ending in real time. The press conference erupted. Patricia, his campaign manager, tried to salvage something. James walked past her like she was furniture. Senator, wait. He kept walking. I'm done running from truth, Patricia. I'm going to be a father. The family left through a side exit. Outside reporters were already crafting headlines, spinning narratives, turning vulnerability into content. But in the car driving back to Riverside, the Blackwoods sat in silence that wasn't uncomfortable. Just quiet, processing, adjusting to a reality where money didn't fix things and power didn't protect them, and all they had left was each other and the question of whether that would be enough. I have to finish my shift. Tyler's voice broke the silence. I know. We'll wait for you. All of us. James spoke without looking back from the driver's seat. You don't have to. Yes, we do. Your grandmother's already at the diner. Your Uncle David showed up. After 15 years of not speaking to the family, he came. Because of you. Elizabeth turned from the passenger seat. Why? Because you did something none of us could do. You admitted you were wrong. You faced consequences. You changed. She smiled. That's more courage than this family's shown in 3 generations. They pulled into the diner parking lot at 1:45. 15 minutes left in Tyler's shift. The crowd had grown. News of James's press conference had spread. People wanted to see how the story ended. Tyler walked back inside, put on the apron Tommy had been wearing, took back his section. How'd it go? Tommy asked while handing over the order pad. My dad quit the Senate. Good. Politics were making him an asshole anyway. Tyler laughed, actually laughed. The sound surprised him. He worked the last 15 minutes, took 3 orders, delivered 2 plates, poured coffee until his hands went numb with repetition. When the clock hit 2, Frank called him over. Your shift's done. Tyler nodded. You did okay, better than expected. Thanks. The word felt insufficient, but it was all he had. Sarah appeared. Come with me. She led him to table 9. Michael and all the bikers were there. So was his grandmother, Laura, his Uncle David, his parents. Daniel sat at the counter doing homework. Healthy now, color returned to his face like spring following winter. We wanted to do something for you, Michael spoke. But we realized you don't need anything from us. I need a lot, actually. Tyler's voice was steady. I need to learn how to be better, how to show up, how to matter. Then here's what you do. Sarah McKenna spoke. You come back, not because you have to, because you want to. Work here. 1 shift a week minimum wage. Real work. Keep learning what your expensive education never taught you. Tyler looked at Sarah Chen. Would you want that? Would you actually do it? Or is this just another moment that sounds good? I'll do it every week, for as long as you'll have me. Sarah smiled. Then yeah, I'd want that. Michael stood, shook Tyler's hand. The grip was firm but not crushing. The handshake of equals recognizing each other. You did good, kid. Not perfect, but good. And good is where change starts. The diner applauded, not everyone. Some people still hated him, still thought 3 days was nowhere near enough. But enough people clapped that it felt real, like permission to become someone different. Frank approached nervously. Sarah, about the money situation. I know I haven't been fair. I'm done, Frank. Effective immediately. The diner went silent. You're quitting. Frank's face went pale. I'm quitting you. But Michael and the Iron Brotherhood are helping me start my own place, small diner on East Pine. Real wages, fair tips. No owner who forgets his staff are human. She turned to Tyler. You're welcome to work there when it opens in 6 months, if you're still interested. I am, he said it immediately, no hesitation. Michael grinned. We raised $11,000 from the chapters. Add what you saved plus a small business loan, you'll make it work. Sarah's eyes filled. She'd already seen the restaurant Michael had built, but hearing it spoken aloud in front of everyone made it real in a different way. One condition, Michael's voice carried the weight of ceremony. Table 9, reserved, always, deal. They hugged, all of them, bikers and waitress and senator and grandmother and son. One moment of genuine connection in a world that usually kept people separated by invisible walls that money built and maintained. Outside, the sun was setting over Montana. The crowd dispersed. The cameras left. The viral moment was becoming history. But inside the diner, something had changed. Something fundamental. Something that couldn't be undone. That night, the Blackwoods sat together in their kitchen. Not the formal dining room where they usually perform the theater of family. The actual kitchen. They ordered pizza. Something they hadn't done in years. Ate it off paper plates because ceremonial china felt wrong for what they were becoming. What now, Tyler asked through a mouthful of pepperoni. Now we figure it out. Together. James spoke with his mouth full too. The informality was intentional. Practice for a life where presentation mattered less than presence. I think I want to go to community college instead of Yale. His parents looked at him. Are you sure? Elizabeth's voice carried concern but not judgment. Yeah, I don't deserve Yale. And honestly, I don't think I want it anymore. I want to learn, really learn, not just collect credentials. James nodded slowly. Then that's what you'll do. They finished their pizza, cleaned up together. For the first time in 17 years, the Blackwood house felt like a home instead of a museum. Tyler went to bed at 10. His body hurt everywhere. His hands were stained with coffee that no amount of washing removed. His feet had blisters on top of blisters, but he was smiling. Tomorrow he'd wake up different. Not better yet, not fixed, but different. And different was where healing started. 6 months passed like water through fingers. Tyler kept his promise. Every Tuesday morning, 6 a.m., he showed up at Riverside Diner. Gerald tried to fire him twice. Once for disrupting the atmosphere. Once for reminding customers of that incident. But the other staff threatened to walk if Tyler left. Turned out people liked working with someone who'd been humbled. Turned out humility was contagious. He enrolled at Montana State Community College in January. Business management and hospitality. His Yale acceptance had been officially revoked in November. The letter came on a Tuesday. He was at the diner when he opened it. You okay? Sarah asked. Yeah, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. What he didn't know then was that by April, he'd be helping Sarah build something that would change everything again. Chen's Haven was set to open May 15th. The construction had taken longer than expected. Permits, inspections, electrical issues that ate through the budget like termites through old wood. But Michael and the Iron Brotherhood kept fundraising. The community kept showing up. Slowly, painfully, the building transformed. On May 10th, 5 days before opening, everything went wrong. Sarah got the call at 6:30 a.m. She was at Riverside helping Frank through one final breakfast rush before her new place opened. Miss Chen, this is Fire Marshal Davidson. We need you at your property immediately. Her stomach dropped into a place where gravity worked differently. What happened? Electrical fire. Started around 4 a.m. We contained it, but there's significant damage. She was out the door before Frank could protest. Tyler followed. He'd been wiping tables. Saw her face go white. I'm driving. They made it to East Pine Street in 8 minutes. The building still stood, but smoke damage marked the walls like bruises. Fire trucks were packing up. The marshal met them at the door. How bad? Sarah's voice came out smaller than she intended. Kitchens destroyed. Wiring was older than we thought. Couldn't handle the new equipment load. You're looking at 60 to 70,000 in repairs, maybe more. The electrical inspector who'd signed off on the wiring had been cutting corners for years. He'd be arrested within a week, but that wouldn't rebuild Sarah's kitchen. I don't have 70,000. The words came out as whisper. I've already borrowed everything I can. Used every penny from the MC fundraiser. Took out a loan I can barely afford. There's nothing left. Tyler pulled out his phone. Then we'll find it. He made a call. Dad, I need your help, not your money, your connections. What happened next proved that sometimes the people who hurt you become the ones who save you. James Blackwood had spent 6 months rebuilding his life. No Senate, no campaign, no political future. He'd taken a job teaching government at the University of Montana. Adjunct professor, making a fraction of what he'd earned in politics. But he'd also started connecting with people again. Real people, not donors, not constituents, just humans. He made 7 phone calls that morning. By noon, 3 local contractors had agreed to donate labor. By 2 p.m., a supplier offered materials at cost. By 5 p.m., the Iron Brotherhood had rallied 15 other clubs to help with demolition and reconstruction. We can have you open in 3 weeks, James told Sarah when he arrived at the site. Not 5 days, but 3 weeks if everyone works. Sarah looked at this man, the father of the boy who'd spit on her, the senator who'd represented everything she'd never be. Now standing in her burned kitchen, offering help he didn't have to give. Why? Because my son learned something from you. And I'm trying to learn it too. That showing up matters, that people matter, that doing the right thing isn't about headlines, it's just about showing up. She nodded, couldn't speak, just nodded. What nobody expected was, who else would show up? By the next morning, the story had spread, not because reporters picked it up. They'd moved on to newer scandals. But small towns talk and good news travels faster than bad when people actually care. Elizabeth Blackwood arrived at 7 a.m. with coffee for everyone in a checkbook. I'm not trying to buy anything, she told Sarah, but I have money sitting in an account doing nothing. Let it do something good. She wrote a check for $20,000. Sarah tried to refuse. It's not charity, it's an investment. I want 5% ownership in Chen's Haven. I want to be part of something real for once in my life. Sarah looked at the check, looked at Elizabeth, saw something familiar in her eyes, the exhaustion of pretending to be someone you're not. Deal, but you're working the grand opening. Apron and everything? Elizabeth smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Frank showed up at noon, didn't say anything at first, just started helping tear out damaged drywall. After an hour, he approached Sarah. I was a bad boss, I knew it. Did it anyway. Easier to underpay people than admit I was barely making rent myself. Frank, let me finish. He wiped sweat from his face. You deserve better, they all did. I'm closing Riverside, selling it. Whatever I get half goes to you for back wages I should have paid years ago. Sarah's eyes widened. Your closing can't compete with you anyway. Not when you actually treat people right. He almost smiled. Figure maybe I'll retire. Fish more. Stop being an asshole. It's never too late to stop being an asshole. Tommy said, walking past with a load of debris. Frank laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, I guess not. What Frank didn't say was that watching Sarah get spit on and him doing nothing had eaten at him for 6 months. Every night. Every morning. The shame of his cowardice had become unbearable. Closing the diner wasn't charity. It was penance. The construction became a community event. People showed up who'd never met Sarah. Contractors, teachers, students from Tyler's community college. The story had touched something. The idea that dignity could be defended, that cruelty could be answered, that change was actually possible. Daniel came every day after school, now 13, healthier than he'd been in years. He brought sandwiches for the workers, asked 1,000 questions about construction. Can I work here when it opens? He asked his mother. You're 13. I'll be 14 in 3 months. That's legal working age with parental permission. I checked. Sarah hugged him. You're supposed to be a kid. Play. Have fun. I am having fun. I like this. Building something. Being part of something. What Daniel didn't know was that in 5 years, he'd be managing Chen's Haven while Sarah opened a second location. But that morning, he was just a kid who wanted to help his mother's dream come true. Tyler worked 18-hour days, classes in the morning, construction until midnight. His hands developed new calluses on top of old ones. His back hurt permanently. You're overdoing it, James said one evening as they worked side by side installing drywall. Probably. But I owe her this. You don't owe her anything. You served your 3 days. I don't mean the debt from the spit. I mean the debt from watching her teach me how to be human. That debt doesn't have a time limit. James understood. He worked alongside his son, learning how to use tools he'd never touched, taking orders from contractors who'd voted against him, sleeping 4 hours a night, feeling more alive than he had in 20 years. On May 28th, 2 weeks after the fire, Michael walked through the rebuilt kitchen, tested the stoves, checked the electrical, ran water through every sink. It's good. Better than good. It's right. We're opening June 1st, Sarah told the assembled workers. 50 people stood in the dining room. Exhausted, paint splattered, proud. I can't pay most of you, can't thank you enough, but you're all invited to the grand opening, and you all eat free for life, someone started clapping. Then everyone, not polite applause, real celebration, the kind that comes from building something together that matters more than money. What Sarah didn't say was that she'd gone from waitress with a broken car to restaurant owner with a community in 6 months. And none of it would have happened if a spoiled teenager hadn't spit in her face. Funny how life works sometimes. The grand opening was scheduled for Saturday, June 1st at 6 a.m. They'd feed the first 100 customers for free, expected maybe 200 people total for the day. By 5:30 a.m., there were 500 people in line. By 6 a.m., the line stretched 3 blocks. News crews showed up. Christine Park had written a follow-up article that went more viral than the original video. 8 million views. Shared by celebrities, politicians, everyday people who saw something in Sarah's story that resonated with their own struggles. But inside Chen's Haven, Sarah wasn't thinking about viral moments or articles or fame. She was thinking about the pancakes burning on the stove because she'd forgotten to flip them. Sarah breathed. I got this. Maria, her new cook formerly from Riverside, grabbed the spatula. There's too many people. We can. You hired good people, trained us right. Now let us work. Sarah stepped back, watched her staff move through the kitchen like choreography. Watched Tyler take orders at table 9, now packed with bikers who'd made this possible. Watched Elizabeth serve coffee with a smile that looked like freedom. Watched Daniel bus tables with the kind of pride that comes from seeing your mother succeed. Watched her dream become real. At 8 a.m., a commotion at the door. Secret Service agents entered first, followed by Governor Linda Hayes. The restaurant went silent. Miss Chen, Governor Hayes approached. I wanted to congratulate you personally and to offer something. She handed Sarah an envelope. Inside was a formal letter. I'm proposing new state legislation, mandatory dignity training for all food service positions, fair wage requirements, protection from harassment. We're calling it the Chen Act. Sarah read the letter twice. You're naming it after me. You started something here. Showed us that respect isn't negotiable, that defending someone's dignity isn't radical. It's required. We want to make that law. The restaurant erupted in applause. Sarah couldn't speak, just held the letter like it might vanish. What Governor Hayes didn't say was that she'd been a waitress too. 23 years ago, before law school. Nobody had defended her when a customer threw hot coffee in her face because his eggs were cold. She carried that shame for 2 decades. Watching Sarah refuse to be ashamed had healed something the governor didn't know was broken. At noon, Senator David Chen arrived with his family, Elizabeth's brother, newly elected to the seat James had vacated. He waited in line like everyone else. When he finally got a table, he asked for Sarah. My sister invested in this place, made me promise to support it. So here I am, customer number 417. He smiled, and I'm telling everyone in Helena that Chen's Haven is where I eat when I'm home. Why, Sarah asked. Because family matters. and Elizabeth finally found hers. That means something. What David didn't say was that he'd spent 15 years refusing to speak to his sister because she'd married into wealth and pretended her past didn't exist. Her investment in Sarah's restaurant, her willingness to serve coffee in an apron on opening day, had convinced him that people could change. And if Elizabeth could change, maybe he could forgive. The day stretched into evening. They'd planned to close at 8 p.m. At 7:45, there were still people waiting. Sarah made the call. We stay open until the line's gone. Everyone who waited deserves to eat. They served the last customer at 11:30 p.m. A young woman, college-aged, wearing a university sweatshirt. I'm studying hospitality management. My professor made us watch your story. Said it's required viewing for anyone who wants to work with people. Said dignity is the foundation of service. She looked at Sarah with eyes that held ambition and respect in equal measure. I want to work here. When I graduate, I want to learn from you. Sarah handed her an application. Fill this out. We're hiring. The girl left, clutching the application like treasure. The staff cleaned up in exhausted silence. At midnight, Sarah locked the door. Michael and the bikers were still there. Table 9. Waiting. How'd we do 17,000 in revenue? First day. That's unheard of. Tommy checked the register. Tomorrow will be slower. Reality sets in. But today was magic. Sarah sat at table 9. Let herself feel it. The exhaustion, the triumph, the impossible reality that she'd gone from victim to victor in half a year. Thank you for all of it, for standing up, for showing up, for believing in something that seemed impossible. We didn't do anything special. Michael's voice was gentle. We just refused to look away. That's all anyone has to do. See people, really see them. The rest takes care of itself. Tyler emerged from the kitchen. He'd been washing dishes for 3 hours. His shirt was soaked, his hands pruned. Last dish is clean. Go home. You've been here 17 hours? So have you. It's my restaurant, and it's my second chance. That's worth 17 hours. What Tyler didn't say was that he'd been accepted to Cornell School of Hotel Administration for the following fall. Full scholarship. Not because of his father's money, but because his application essay about 3 days as a waiter had moved the admissions committee to tears. He hadn't decided if he'd go. Montana felt like home now. Chen's Haven felt like where he belonged. But that decision was for another day. Sarah sent everyone home at 1 a.m., stood alone in her restaurant. Her restaurant. The words still felt foreign. She thought about 6 months ago, about the spit, about wanting to disappear. She thought about Michael standing up, about Tyler learning, about her son getting medicine, about her car running, about new shoes, about this kitchen, this dining room, this impossible dream made real. She realized something profound. The worst moment of her life had become the catalyst for the best thing she'd ever built. Not because the humiliation was worth it. Cruelty was never worth it. But because enough people decided that looking away wasn't acceptable. That defending dignity was mandatory. That showing up mattered more than staying comfortable. She locked up at 1:30, drove home in her Honda, not fancy but reliable. Daniel was asleep when she arrived. She kissed his forehead. We did it, baby. We actually did it. 10 years later, Sarah Chen stood in the main dining room of Chen's Haven's flagship location. The restaurant had grown, 4 locations now across Montana. Each one reserved table 9 for the local motorcycle club. Each one paid fair wages. Each one operated on Sarah's principle, dignity first, profit second. The Chen Act had passed the Montana legislature in November of that first year. Other states adopted similar laws. Within 5 years, hospitality workers across America had protections they'd never had before. All because a woman refused to accept that being spit on was just part of the job. Daniel managed the main location now, 23 years old, wearing his father's dog tags, healthy, strong, everything Sarah had fought for him to become. Tyler was her business partner. Graduated from Cornell, came back to Montana, eventually married Daniel's older sister Lily, who'd been away at college during everything. They had a daughter now, Emma, 4 years old. She wore a miniature apron when she visited the restaurant. James taught at the university, wrote books about failure and redemption. His latest, When Everything Falls Apart. A senator's journey to becoming human was required reading and leadership courses nationwide. Elizabeth ran a nonprofit helping former service workers transition to ownership. Funded by her divorce settlement, she and James had reconciled eventually, not as husband and wife, but as partners in the work of becoming better humans. Laura had left too after 43 years. Sometimes becoming yourself meant leaving behind the person you had pretended to be. Frank sold Riverside, gave Sarah half like he'd promised, spent his retirement volunteering at a food bank, trying to give back what he'd taken. Michael still rode, 72 now, gray in his beard, still at table 9 every Tuesday morning, still watching over people who needed defending because that's what he did. That's who he was. Not a hero, just a man who refused to look away. The 10-year anniversary celebration filled Chen's Haven beyond capacity. Governor Hayes spoke about the Chen Act's impact, 47 states, 2 million workers protected. Senator David Chen presented Sarah with a commendation. Christine Park published a retrospective, the viral video that changed Montana. But the moment that mattered most came when Michael stood. The room quieted. This man who'd started everything with one simple action, standing up. 10 years ago, a kid did something unforgivable. And we made a choice not to destroy him, to teach him. Because punishment without education just makes better criminals. Education without compassion makes better laws, but not better people. He looked at Tyler. You became better. Not perfect. None of us are. But better. That's all anyone can ask. He turned to Sarah. And you showed us something we needed to see. That standing up matters. That dignity isn't negotiable. That one person's courage can change an entire community. He raised his coffee cup. To Sarah Chen, who taught us that the opposite of cruelty isn't kindness. It's courage. The courage to refuse. The courage to demand. The courage to build something better from the ashes of something broken. The room raised their glasses. Cups, coffee, water, whatever they held. To Sarah. The words echoed. Sarah stood, looked around the room, at the people who'd built this, at the community that had formed around one moment of choosing to care. 10 years ago, someone spit on me. Her voice was steady, and I thought, this is my life. This is what I'm worth. But 4 people said no. 4 people refused to accept that treating people like garbage was normal. And because they refused, everything changed. She touched the red bandana still tied around her wrist. Michael's mother's bandana, carried through decades, through grief, through determination, through the simple act of not looking away. The past doesn't die. It waits. It waits for someone to honor it, to carry it forward, to turn old wounds into new strength. She looked at Michael. Your mother would be proud. Of you. Of all of this. Michael's eyes were wet. She already is. The celebration continued. Music, food, laughter. The sound of a community that had learned what mattered and refused to forget. As the night ended, Sarah found herself at table 9. Alone finally, Michael had left. The bikers had ridden off into Montana night, their engines singing songs of brotherhood and roads that never end. She sat in the silence, looked at the photo wall. Every face a story, every story a choice, every choice a ripple. A voice came from behind her. Tyler, still here. Thank you, he said. For what? For not giving up on me, for showing me that people can change, that 3 days can become 10 years, that one moment doesn't have to define a life. Sarah smiled. You're welcome. But Tyler, I didn't change you. You changed yourself. I just refused to let you hide from what you'd done. There's a difference, is there? Yeah. Change is always a choice. I can't make that choice for you. Nobody can. You have to wake up every morning and choose to be better than you were yesterday. That's the work. That's always the work, Tyler nodded. And you keep doing that work every Tuesday morning. 1 shift a week, 10 years. You never missed. Because the work matters, not the hours. The work, the remembering, the staying humble, the not forgetting where I came from and who I hurt getting here. He looked at table 9. This table saved my life. You know that Sarah touched the wood. It saved mine too. They sat in silence. 2 people who'd started as enemy and victim, now partners, family, connected by the invisible threads that suffering and redemption weave when people choose courage over comfort. Outside Montana, night covered everything. Stars visible in ways they never were in cities. The kind of darkness that makes light matter more. Chen's Haven sat on East Pine Street, a beacon, a promise, a testament to the simple truth that change is possible, that dignity is non-negotiable, that showing up is the only currency that counts. And Table 9 waited, reserved, always. For those who stand when standing costs something. For those who see when seeing requires courage. For those who refuse when refusing means everything. The story doesn't end here. Stories like this don't end. They ripple. They multiply. They become the kind of truth that changes how people see the world. Sarah Chen learned that the worst moments don't define us. How we respond defines us. And how others respond reveals who they really are. Michael Romano learned that keeping promises to the dead honors them more than any gravestone. Tyler Blackwood learned that privilege isn't permanent and character isn't optional. And a community learned that one person standing up can give permission for everyone else to stand too. Some debts get paid in ways money can't buy. This was one of them. The past always catches up. And when it does, you get to choose what it teaches you. You don't judge a man by his worst day. You judge him by what he does after. Every person has two deaths. When their heart stops and when the last person who remembers them forgets. As long as someone remembers, as long as someone carries forward the lesson, nobody truly dies. Children see what adults miss. They have clarity we lose along the way. Daniel saw Tyler's potential before anyone else. Emma carries that forward now. Real strength isn't never crying. Real strength is crying when something matters enough to break through the walls we build. Brotherhood means nobody gets left behind. Not bikers, not waitresses, not spoiled kids learning what matters. Nobody. And dignity isn't given. It's claimed, it's defended, it's insisted upon even when the world says you don't deserve it. Especially then. These truths lived in Chen's Haven. In the wood of Table 9, in the smell of coffee and motor oil that meant safety, in the sound of boots on linoleum that meant protection arriving, in the red bandana passed from mother to son to waitress to community. Sarah turned off the lights, locked the door, drove home through streets she knew by heart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new customers, new opportunities to defend dignity or look away. The work never ended, it just changed forms. But tonight she slept, not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. It never would be. But because she'd learned that perfect wasn't the point. The point was showing up, trying, refusing to accept that cruelty was normal, building something better even when building seemed impossible. That was enough. That was everything. The end wasn't an ending. It was a beginning that kept beginning. Every day, every shift, a Tuesday morning when Tyler showed up and Michael sat at Table 9 and Sarah served coffee with dignity, earned and defended. This was the legacy. Not fame, not money, not viral videos, but the simple, radical act of treating people like they mattered and teaching others to do the same. One table at a time, one customer at a time, one stand at a time, forever.